Hi, I'm Margarita, and this is Raw to hear your voice. And I want to welcome in Sue. And Sue is from Transform You in New Zealand, and she is a rapid transformational therapist. So, welcome, Sue.
Hi.
Hi. So, Sue and I today want to have a discussion, a very open and raw discussion, hence it's raw, about suicide, right? And I guess what we've experienced over the last couple of weeks in terms of, out in the marketplace. And I say marketplace loosely, but out there in terms of what we hear. So I want to come back to something actually, and this is a bit of an awareness that people are going to step into with this, because we are going to be raw. We are going to be talking about suicide, and it is going to be, I guess, eye-opening, but also very raw and quite possibly triggering for other people, right, who have probably suffered this sort of thing and emotional, or their emotional feelings. So one of the things that, when we started talking a couple of weeks ago was I'd known the person who actually called me, and it wasn't a very good call. And they had basically said that their friend had come down to their house, they weren't home, and they'd shot their head off. And you can't be more real than that, right? We're actually getting into the nitty gritty. And I guess after the shock that it actually left me, it got me feeling a couple of things, right? It got me feeling angry, which is an emotion, but also there's got to be more out there. And then, of course, I spoke to Sue after that, right? And you had gone through something
Just the day later, I think it was. Yeah.
just a day later, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of, I guess, what transpired. And, from Sue's point of view, who is a rapid transformational therapist who works in the field of mental health, and myself, who we're coming from the place of being a rapid transformational therapist and trauma-informed coach, of where we actually do sit in the brain, and I guess the triggers around that set people off,
Yeah.
into thinking the way that they do. For example, when I spoke to the person that I know, um, what had transpired is the wife that morning, and there's no blame. So let's be clear, right? There's no blame for anyone, right? It's when we don't understand the way that we're feeling and the words that we say to ourselves. But she had actually had an argument. The marriage wasn't going well, and she'd told him a number of things, including, get out. But the number of things included emotional abuse, for want of a better word, although she's not an emotional abuser usually, but it's the dynamic of what happened, right? And so here he left thinking, already suffering depression, and headed down to this person that I know's house. And I guess the rest is history, right? In terms of what happened. But, from the wife's point of view, and I'd love your feedback on this too, Sue, is, um, when we talk about where we sit and why we get so angry and why we get upset, when we do flip our lid, the front part, we're not sitting right in the part that we can talk about things when we're online. It is all emotional. So a lot of stuff would have been blurted out from the limbic system, our fight or flight, because she would have been feeling triggered.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, right, when we think back, she's probably, more than kicking herself now, right? Because that's the last time that she actually saw him. And what were the words that she actually said to him?
Yeah. She'll be living with
So
that for the rest of her life, unfortunately.
I know, it's incredible, and she can't take it back.
No.
So it's the awareness, right, of where we sit and how you as well can actually help from the subconscious. Because my thought is, and I'd love to know sort of what went on the next day for you, that got us connecting and really talking about this. But from my point of view, depression sits in the back part of the brain. Fight or flight's here. And of course, we come back to the front part, the neocortex, and we're online, right? We're able to think rationally. So I wonder where she sat, and then I wonder where he sat. And I suspect that he was numb. He was feeling like he was out of control. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. How can he get out
Yeah.
of this? And a whole
Mm.
pile of other things, right?
Yeah, we can only speculate as to what he was feeling, but it's a split decision that they make at that crucial moment
Yeah,
because they can't see any other way. And it just upsets me because I've seen it and heard it too many times in my life, and um, I've been close to people that have had friends or family commit suicide. My uncle's committed suicide. Um,
yeah,
and it's an ugly, ugly space to be in. And I called you up the other week because I was asking you, how do we get these people when they're in that state? What can we
yeah,
do to actually help them when they're in that state so they don't take that final decision? Because
yeah,
that's when they need it, like what do we do for these people? Because if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. Let's not worry about it. I don't agree with that.
mm, yeah.
Um,
That's right.
if they're talking about it,
It's a very easy
and
right.
they're having suicidal thoughts and tendencies, that's probably the best place to be able to have these conversations with them. Because if they're not
Yeah,
talking, they're doing it or they've done it, and by then
yeah.
it's too late. You know,
And that is it.
um,
It's too late.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really sad.
So you
Every
spent the next day, didn't you,
yeah,
nurturing
I
some?
was with a friend whose friend was seriously considering suicide and ending their life
Yeah,
because they couldn't see another way through.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, suicide is so final.
It is. That's it.
There's,
It is
there's
final, though, right?
so it's
Yeah,
about what do we do to help people, to help others, or to help the people that need it when they're in that crisis point, because the current whatever
that's
we're
right.
doing is not working.
No, it's not. It's not working. And
Yeah.
and we've spoken about this at length as well, about the fact that,
Mm.
I mean, there's 100% a need, a place, and a time for talk therapy, without a
Yeah.
doubt. But the thing is, as you know, and that's why you do RTT, rapid transformational therapy, is because we are not talking from the front part of the brain. We're actually getting to them from the middle part or the back part.
Mm, mm.
So, and all those feelings, the numbness, which sits in the back part, the triggering parts, the addictions, all in the limbic system. So, you know, when somebody reaches out and somebody says, well, let's take, for example, if they went to talk therapy and they go, well, tell me the bad things that have happened today, right? And all of a sudden they're thinking, okay, and it's a negative already. So positive psychology has a massive part in it. But RTT, when you go into that, what actually happens? I mean, I know I do it too, but from your point of view, um, when you're able to actually facilitate help from the subconscious, actually
Yeah.
getting to that root cause, right?
Mm. Yeah.
It is so
It's
powerful.
it's helping. It's guiding them to. I mean, I did talk therapy for 16 years. You
Yeah,
know, rinse and
yeah,
repeat, week after week. Go back.
yeah,
What's on you? It was almost like paying to talk to a friend. And then it was be kind to yourself. What are you going to do this week to be kind to yourself? Okay, do some breathing techniques and do some grounding techniques. And it was rinse and repeat.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was medicated,
Because
I
it's
was unmedicated. And it was just so relentlessly, there was nothing at the end of it. It was like, this was my life.
yeah,
I would just go
that,
the next week, look forward to seeing them for the most part because it
sure.
was maybe the highlight of my week because I
And
had nothing else.
connection, right?
And it was connection, yeah. someone
Yeah.
that I could talk to that wasn't going to judge me. But it didn't get to the core reason of
Yeah.
why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. We just scratched the surface, because even though I might be
Exactly.
able to like name what it was, I
Mm.
then what? I just named it. Cool, that's what that is. That's
And
depression,
you
or that.
named it from your conscious part, right?
Yeah, but that's all that happened. Then you go away and you be kind to yourself for a week, and and you do the suggested steps, and then the next week you go back and they might touch on that again, but that might be gone that week. It might be something new that you're touching on. But
Yeah.
that's it. That's it for me. That's all that happened for me. And 16 years, that's a lot of money to spend on a therapy that was absolutely brilliant in the beginning. But after how long does
Yeah.
it become redundant?
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
And
I've
as you
read,
say, rinse and repeat, right?
yeah, I read, well, actually, I read a post today online, and someone mentioned something. And my response to
Yeah.
her was, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. All right, I
Yeah.
did that for 16 years because that's all I knew. And looking back,
That
it
is,
was insane.
yeah, but that's all so many people know, right? And
Yes.
so many people are out there asking for help, asking
Mm.
for a new way forward. And that is something that we can actually offer, is a new way forward, that they
Yeah, but
don't
they're
have
actually,
to be stuck.
yeah, but they're scared to take that new way forward because new
Yeah,
is uncomfortable and not familiar. And what if it
that's
doesn't
right.
work? What if it does?
Yeah,
More importantly, what if it
exactly.
does?
Yeah.
What have you got
So,
to
I mean,
lose?
there's nothing to lose, is there? But you see, and it's interesting what you just said, right? Because the brain's only job is to keep us alive. If it
Mm.
didn't, and excuse the pun, kill you yesterday, because I know this is a very sensitive subject, but from your brain's point of view, it actually thinks you're doing a good job because you were safe yesterday. And it
Mm.
takes the quickest way. So if something new comes along and it's all of a sudden causing you some anxiety, it's causing all this overthinking, then your brain's going, no, I don't want any of that. I'm going to go the other way, the quickest way.
Mm.
But I mean, even from your point of view, from where you've been, and actually from where I've been, and had to look back at my future and actually what triggered me and why I was. And I mean, to be real, if anyone's actually picked up my story and read it, I've been the one, as well as so many other people, that sat on the bathroom floor with a knife,
Mm.
and it is so real, and there's a reason why we do it. And it's, we want to feel that rawness. We want to feel like we're all of a sudden in control. And if we're doing this, if I was doing this, then it felt like, okay, I've actually got control of myself for a minute.
Yeah.
So, but what does that look like on the other side? Well, before we get to this point where there's so many lives lost, and I mean, look at you and me now.
Yeah.
We have a future. I've
Mm-hmm.
come through the tunnel. It took me probably 14 years to come through exactly what you'd gone through, talk therapy, because
Yeah.
there was nothing available until I met RTT,
Yeah.
and the same as you.
Yeah.
And so the
Exactly.
transformation that we can actually offer people coming from our heart, right? Because
Mm.
we want them here, we want them on this planet. We want them to fulfill what they actually came onto the planet for. And it
Yeah.
certainly wasn't to end their life.
Mm.
So, so many people who step into, doing what we do now and even further have a story. And yet
Yes.
so many people are too scared. They're feeling like they're guilty, they're afraid, they don't want to speak it, they feel judgment.
Mm.
And actually, this quote that I say, and it's so cliche, right? Because everyone already heard it. What people say about you is none of your business. Because if we take it on,
Mm.
there's all our overthinking.
Yeah.
You know, wow, it's crazy. So I remember, looking back, I had my best friend, um, actually committed suicide.
Yeah.
And then probably about, I don't know how many years later, actually the girl that I grew up with who lived around the corner, I got a call to say that she'd also done it as well. She'd ended her life. And, it's easy to say this, to sit here and do this, but the feelings that they are really feeling, if we lean into that, because there is probably a lot of numbness, right? There's a lot of, what else do you think that they're feeling? There'll be numbness, there'll be, I can't get out of
Hopelessness.
this, or
Yeah.
hopelessness.
It's,
Yeah.
it's absolute hopelessness. Like, what
Mm,
is the point?
yeah.
You don't feel loved. You don't feel enough. Even though you might
Yeah.
have a family that are surrounding you, and they love you, and that you're with people, but you still feel so alone and so trapped, and just there's nothing. You've gone through
Yeah.
all of this sitting in the back part of your brain, and what's the point?
Disassociation as well.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
absolutely. Yeah, what is
Yeah.
the point? Who's going to
Yeah.
miss me? What's the point? Or
Who's,
it could be, I know I'm missed, but I still can't bear the shame of what's happened in my life.
yeah,
Money
all the
issues,
pain.
pain. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's money, relationships. Um, what did I see the other day? Cyberbullying with kids, extortion, sex extortion, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
You know,
What
and
the hell, right?
yeah, and one boy, 6 hours it took for him from the beginning of this extortion to the end, and he ended his life within a 6 hour period. How absolutely heartbreaking is that? And
Yeah.
he came from a good family, and he had all the good things, but it was just this one thing in his life, and they actually they had a photo of him, and then they started photoshopping his head onto other people's bodies and telling him that they were going to release it to, his school, and all this other stuff, if he didn't pay up. And if he didn't pay up, then he may as well commit suicide. So they actually told him to commit suicide.
And
And
do
this
it.
boy
Yeah.
did it because he was so
Yeah.
ashamed and embarrassed because of these pictures that were going to be let out. And
And
I take my head off to the mother and the family. They released these pictures. They were just like, look, our son is dead. We don't want this to happen to anyone else. A year and a
yeah.
half later, they tracked down the people that had actually done this, and there were two men in Nigeria.
It's so unbelievable, honestly. And for what reason, right? That's, I
Yeah,
think, the thing that pisses me the most is, for what reason? What is the outcome? The outcome is exactly what we're talking about now. Somebody's life has ended
yeah,
because of some ass in another place who has no emotion, who is coming from it from another point of view of, let's just do that. Let's see how far we can go. And, taking it even further, the people that I work with, the kids who self harm. And absolutely, there's lots of parents, but the kids that feel like they are
yeah.
not in control. And so I think the saddest thing is, right, is when I went to school, we weren't taught how to self regulate. We had no idea. And unless we're actually taught that,
Mm.
what do we do?
But we
How are
also
we going
didn't
to
have,
get out?
and we didn't have social
No, we
media.
didn't.
So if we
That's
were
right.
bullied,
It was,
tormented, it happened at particular places, particular times. You knew when it was going to happen. And so I think mentally you could prepare yourself, right? I'm going to school today. I know I'm going to get
yeah,
bullied and picked on. And it happened at school, and it stayed at school.
yeah,
Whereas
that's right.
now it follows us around
Foreseeable.
everywhere. We're so
Yeah, it does.
accessible to abuse and torture and pain, and like 24/7. If you're
It
being
is
bullied and picked
24/7.
on, it's
Yes.
relentless.
It is relentless, and this 24/7, that's a really interesting point, right? Because when it is relentless, those words that we are telling ourselves, it's like, and if it's coming from somebody we know, it's almost like pat on the head, punch in the face. And what that ends up is we need that trauma to keep happening because it gives us that fix of hormones, right? Of dopamine. So every time we feel good again, we keep going back and back and back because our brain's saying, I want more of that. And it is just that whirlwind. And so, I've been through that with my past. I know you've gone through it as well, where we can't seem to break that trauma bond, and
Yeah.
RTT does do it, right? It actually gives freedom.
Yep.
It gives you the freedom to actually put the trauma here and actually look at it like, okay, I can see you, but I'm actually able to talk with you now and it's not affecting me, right? So what
Mm.
it does, in effect, if we look at, and we discussed this the other day, did you say it was Bruce Almighty, that program, and they had that
Yep.
long,
Cabinet.
the cabinet, and so
The
that's
filing
like our
cabinet.
memories, the
Filing cabinet.
filing cabinet, yeah,
Yep.
and it pulls it out. So that is like that sits in our limbic system, and it's our hippocampus. So that stores our long-term memory. So
Mm.
if we've had trauma already from the past and it hasn't been dealt with because we haven't had a secure attachment,
Mm.
then what happens is it's like a living memory. So it doesn't get stored in that filing cabinet where we go, okay, I'm actually going to look at this today. I'm going to review it, but I'm not going to get into it and relive it. So basically, what RTT does, right, is it opens up the box and deals with the trauma, and then it packs it back away in that filing cabinet, actually where
Where?
it belongs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where it should be. So if
Yeah.
something happened at 2 years old, at 5 years old, at 4 years old, whatever that was, that triggered that person way back then, to then bring into their adult self and then feel not enough, not lovable, and all that,
Mm.
then we put all that away and it gets its place. And that, right, is the most freeing part, because actually what that feels like for me, and I'd love to know what it feels like for you, is what it feels like for me is I can actually see that now, and I can look back at the trauma, and right, I didn't have a trauma. There's so many different types of trauma,
Yeah.
right? There's sexual trauma. There's, the nurses who go to work all day. They're doing the trauma. There's trauma of, um, mental abuse, but there's also trauma of being in a hospital and something not being available to you and how we perceive it as a
Yes.
kid, right?
Yeah.
So, but when we do have that secure attachment, then we often put the trauma back where it belongs. But
Mm.
for me, what I do now is I look at it and I go, okay, that was really interesting, and that's why I am here. And
Mm.
actually, that's why we're all here, right? This is why you are here, to transform people's lives,
Yeah.
because we've
Absolutely.
transformed it, and it can happen.
Mm.
And so the one message I want to get out today is that you may feel stuck, right? You may feel numb. You may feel like there's no hope. But there is actually hope, and it doesn't start with talk therapy, does it?
No. We all talk. We've been talking for years. Who's listening? What's
That's right.
changing? What's happening?
Yeah.
Nothing. People are still dying. People are still
People,
depressed. People are still stuck.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking back for you and your journey from all the
Oh.
things that you felt, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be really raw here, because, and if you don't mind me sharing this, because, and I know it's your story and this is why you do it, but I remember the very first day and I said to you, what do you want to feel like later? And you had no idea.
No.
You had no
No idea.
idea.
What
All
does
you
that
could
even
do was
mean?
cry.
What does
Yeah, you
that
were numb.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean? What does it mean for you now, though?
What do you want to feel like? Oh my goodness, where do I start? The list is long. I want to feel amazing and energetic and full of life, and I want to be able to give my what I've learned back to other people, and the list just goes bang bang. Like the list is long,
Yeah.
but yeah, I vaguely remember that day because it seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't live in that
And
space
it is
anymore.
really right. That's it, because you're not living in that space.
No, so it's it's hard to even sometimes think back, and because if I think about the trauma and what's happened throughout my life, um, I find it hard to. I remember it, but there's no emotion attached to it. So when I'm talking to people, I kind of, this is my own self talk here happening. I kind of think that they might believe that I should be a bit more emotional about what I'm talking about. Like, where's the tears?
Yeah,
Where's the emotion in you? And it's like, well, it's not. It's there, but it doesn't affect me anymore. I can tell
and
people
that's
openly about what's happened in my life, and it
yeah,
doesn't affect me because
yeah,
I've dealt with it. It's sitting back
and
where
that's
it belongs in that filing cabinet.
yes,
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah. That's
powerful,
what
right?
it is. Yeah.
So powerful. And so, what would be one thing that you would want to get out to everyone out there in terms of how you can help them? Because I know you can. I know you have all the tools
Yeah.
to actually help because you have been there.
Yeah.
So when
I,
every step of the way,
I would say, why not? What have you got to lose?
mm,
And yes, it's scary and change is scary, but what's the alternative? Staying
yeah,
stuck, staying where you are, insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Like, that is such a classic saying, but it's so true.
yeah,
Um,
that is so true.
try it. Yeah. Like,
And so actually, it is about
I
taking action, right?
yeah. So, and I'll be honest about probably my first session that I had with you when we actually went in and did the session. I was lying there, and I'm a bit of a black and white person. Like,
Mm,
I like tangible things that I can feel. And I was going into hypnosis, and my critical brain clicks in and goes, "What is this? Nah, this is bollocks. This is bullshit. Let's get like, nah." And it was just like,
yeah,
nah. But you know what? I was desperate, and I was prepared to do anything because I hadn't done this before. 16 years of talk
yeah.
therapy. And I just shut that part of my brain down and did the suggested steps. And what do you know? It actually worked and it transformed me. And I remember that day I
Yeah,
called you on the phone and I was so happy because I used to have panic attacks and, all this
yeah.
ugly stuff that happened when I saw a particular person or a color of a car, a smell, toothpaste, like
All
there was
those
so many
exactly.
that I had. And this one day I saw this person and I took a deep breath in instinctively, waiting, and I waited
Yeah,
and I breathed out and I waited and I was like, where is it gone? Where's my panic attack? It's not there. There's nothing coming. And I was able to just stop and pause and look at this person and think, you're a piece of shit. And I can now look at you and I don't have those emotions anymore. There
yeah,
was no control. I could stare at them. They didn't know that I was looking at them, but it didn't matter to me. And I was like,
yeah.
wow. And I think that was the first, and it was quite quick, to be fair. It was probably only 2 or 3 months. And that's
Mm.
really fast as far as therapy is concerned. To
Well, when
go
you're
from
thinking
having,
about yeah,
to go from having panic attacks and all of that to being able to go, oh, there you are. You're just a person.
yeah, that's powerful. That
And at
is
that
so
moment,
powerful.
I was like, I want to do what you do because it works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And so doing
and
what I
here I am.
do,
Yes,
doing what you do. It's doing
yes.
what you do,
Now, yeah,
being
yeah.
able
But
to, yeah, and
yeah,
facilitate that change for people so they don't have to feel stuck. So actually, they don't feel like there's no other hope. Where else do I reach out from? So they
mm,
feel like rather than this is it, there's no more hope, I'm going to end my life, being able to have that result that you had where you stop for a minute but there's nothing there. That
Mm,
could just save somebody's life, right?
100%.
That would just stop and save somebody's life. So some kids will still have a mum or a dad, a brother or sister, so they will still have their life so that they can actually achieve what they came onto the planet to do.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you
Wow.
you you have to go through some rough patches in your life, because if
Yeah,
life was easy and simple, then it'd be kind of boring, really. Because we learn so
yeah,
much through any pain that we go through and that we live, because we grow from it. And if you don't grow from it, then unfortunately you get stuck back in this part and you stagnate and you go downhill. If there's no growth and
right.
no movement, then there's nothing.
We're born for growth, right? We're
Yeah.
born for growth, and actually we're born for connection. And so
Mm,
the thing where you said before, what you said about the loneliness, comes often when we don't have connection. But the one thing I've learnt, which I never had and never did when I was younger, is I didn't love myself. I
mm,
didn't feel connected. And now I don't. I know that the actual only person that has to love me is me,
yeah.
and then everything else follows, right? So if we can put something out to everybody out there to know that actually there is help and it's not about talking. There's quick help that they can do, but it's stepping up, and their brain will say, oh, hang on a minute, no, that's going to be too painful, and find all the reasons why not to, because that's the brain's job.
Yeah, exactly.
Their job is to stay alive.
There we go. Sorry, I just had someone turn up and laughing at my front door. So,
Oh my goodness, that's classic, isn't it? I
yeah,
love
having a
it.
good old conversation outside my window.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Um, so look, we are taking around, to do my part as well, taking around New Zealand actually next year. We've got some really cool things coming up, and with you
Yeah.
as well,
Mm-hmm.
about teaching the people about trauma in the workplace, in the schools, mums and dads, how they can understand their kids and what the kids are actually feeling. So it's so important. And then, of
Mm,
course, we've got the RTT with you, who can really get to that inner subconscious and really start to change that.
mm.
So I'd
Yeah.
love to have more of a discussion um,
I
on
was
that
just
day.
going to say, we talk about it often with my partner, and we talk about the
Yeah,
difference. Like when our parents were growing up, they didn't have much, but they always gave us more than what they had. And I'm generalizing.
yeah,
And then us growing up as my generation, my kids have a lot compared to what I had when I was a child. And it was like we didn't get from our parents, maybe we didn't get the emotional connection. And kids, my kids are 17 to 4, 8, 10, 17 to
yeah,
10, give or take.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
and I classify myself as a mother to 6 now. So there's
excellent.
lots of
Yeah,
feelings. And so the kids are allowed to have these feelings these days.
mm,
They're often told it, what are you feeling? But it's so they know maybe how to express what they're feeling, but they don't know how to deal with it.
yeah,
So I'm feeling sad, and
yeah,
then what? What does
yeah.
it mean at
So,
that point? I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling like I want to hurt myself. It's like, well, and then what? Like, you can voice those words, but if you're not taught how to, this is what we're talking about, self-regulate, and
yeah,
then we get into that
and
trouble
look,
again.
absolutely. And I mean, that's your kids, and a lot do, but there's a lot that don't. And
Yeah.
it's those kids that that have maybe got things going on at home that they actually don't feel safe. And
Yeah.
so they hide out in the room, and I deal a lot with that, right? And then, the mum and dad are arguing. There might be an abusive partner in the relationship as well,
Hmm.
and the kids shut down, and
Yeah.
then they disassociate, and they want to feel. And so, there's so much self harm, but at what point does that self harm go the next step?
Yeah.
And become the suicide, that
Yeah.
another statistic based
Yeah.
on something that actually,
And it could even
yeah,
be accidental if they're self harming
that's
and they're
right.
cutting their arms or cutting their legs. They go a little bit deep one day,
Yeah. Oops,
and it's
didn't mean to do
yeah,
that. That's right.
it's
I'm not
too
sure, was it
late.
you that said the other day, or um, about, that's right, about being too late, and the fact that all of a sudden you want to do something, somebody's going to jump off the bridge, and in that split second they decide, no, I don't want to. You're
The
right, it's
guy
too
that
late.
survived, yeah, off the Golden Gate Bridge, he jumped, and he said that the instant that he left the bridge, his thought was, "I don't want to die," but it was too late.
Yeah,
And
it's too
he
late.
plummeted to the water, and he actually lived to tell the tale. And now he's an amazing speaker, and he goes and shares his thoughts and stuff about
Yeah,
suicide. About it's in that split moment. It's like you need to get through that split moment and then
that's
work.
it. Yes,
Yeah, it's a
and
moment
that
in
is so
time
powerful.
that
It's a
affects your
it's a
life
moment,
forever.
yeah,
Mm,
and everybody else's.
yeah.
It's um, my era too. We didn't get shown emotions. I don't ever remember my dad hugging me and saying "I love you." He did, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And so, but I always had my grandmother and my mum and all that, and that's nothing on dad. But we do wonder as a kid. We start to wonder, what's enough? Am I good enough? And then
Mm,
what do I need to do to get that? Now, these
mm,
days, because you and I have both been through that, and so many other people as well,
mm,
we praise our kids, we get them to talk, we tell them that they're lovable, so they have that secure attachment, right? But
mm,
there's so many that don't. So please, the people who are listening to this, you've got two
mm.
incredibly passionate women here that are trained in being able to help you, right?
Yeah.
That it can actually help you um, heal the past. And like Sue said, she doesn't react now. She can look at that person, there's no reaction.
Mm,
So my question is, wouldn't you like to be like that? To get to that point? Because there is that. There's living proof right here.
mm. Absolutely.
Mm.
I want to bring up another really important thing that we talked about the other day, and that is welfare
Mm.
checks on people.
Yeah,
Now, it's a
so
really
important, right?
controversial and ugly topic to talk about because
But needs to be talked about.
everybody thinks that somebody else will do it or they'll be okay. But if
Yeah,
someone's threatening suicide and you can't be there, call someone, the police, and get them to do a welfare check on them. It's their job.
yeah,
And you know what? They
yeah.
might
And
hate you for doing this and they might not talk to you, but at least they're alive and they're not dead.
that's right.
So,
And
yeah,
that's worth any amount
yeah, and
of
I've had
money.
this conversation with with a friend of mine. I said, well, at what point, if you can't get to
Yeah,
this person and they're suicidal, are you what are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to call the police and have a welfare check? Oh no, I could never do that. And I said, why? Because I said your choice is a welfare check or them dead. So I just want to challenge people or put in their brain that if just do it. If you're concerned
yeah,
for someone's safety and you can't be there yourself, do the welfare check because
yeah.
it could be the difference between life and death.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you and
And
I have spoken about
I
that
have
too.
called
But
people and done welfare checks on them and they're not happy. They don't like it. But years later they come around and they're like, thank you.
yeah,
but they're not in their
Exactly.
right brain. They're not going to thank you. They wanted
No,
to
they're not going
die.
to think. Yeah,
But you
that's
can, what
right.
if you didn't? What if you didn't do that welfare check? Then you're left like that, the wife of that person
That's
that
right.
you
The
knew,
feeling of guilt,
and all that
right?
guilt and shame of, I didn't do enough. You
Yeah,
have to
I
live with
didn't
that.
do enough. Yeah. And that's something that we tell ourselves, right? But this is an action that we can actually do, that we can
Yeah,
actually take to
yeah,
facilitate maybe the change of that person's emotional outcome.
mm, yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah, yeah. So before we end this, I really want to thank you from the
No
bottom of my
worries.
heart for coming on here, because it's so important, right? For
It
all of
is.
us to understand that there's actually help. And we're only two people. We can't
And
help
we're
the
only
whole
scraping the
world,
surface.
and we're only
We're
scraping.
glazing over it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
we're not
I
even
mean, that's right. We
yeah, just the shiny glaze on top, really. There's so
yeah,
much more to it.
yeah,
But
indeed.
help is here, help is available. Um, and you've got to get outside your comfort zone if you
Yeah,
want to change.
that's right. And it's
Seriously.
that's right. So just realize when you say that, just realize everyone that's watching this, you are going to feel this as a trigger,
Mm,
getting help, and just know that that is not you. It's a protector part.
yeah.
That's because you were doing what you were doing yesterday.
Hmm.
But when you were a baby, you walked, you fell over, you got up. You had no limitations, right? So imagine you're a baby again. What would your younger self do? It would reach out.
And keep going
Yeah,
and keep trying
keep going. So I'm sure
until
we'll
you,
be seeing you again here.
yes,
But Sue,
look
what's
forward
your
to it.
website? How can people
Pardon?
contact you? How can people
Uh,
contact you?
oh, that's a really good one. Go to my website, which is transformu.co.nz,
Yeah,
and there's a contact me on that
brilliant. Yeah,
website. Yeah.
brilliant. Nice.
Thank you,
Okay,
Margarita.
big
It
hugs,
was a great
much
talk.
love.
Woo.
A much needed one.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
I'll see you
Yeah.
soon.
We
Yep.
could talk for hours.
We could
Yeah.
absolutely talk for hours. We could
Yeah.
talk for hours. So it's
Mm.
beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, for
All right.
sure. Thank you.
Thank you so. All right.
See
Thanks. See
ya.
you. Bye.